Now there's a terrible idea. What is up guys, Clay Enjoyer here, and it's time to enjoy, and in this video, I will be making Luigi. Now, I can start this sculpture like all my other sculptures before, with an aluminum foil body covered in armature wire and clay. Then I can start building up this burrito of clay around Luigi's body to get it somewhat proportional, before then building up his legs and his arms to match his bulky upper body. With the base layer of clay built up, I can then work on giving Luigi a bit of a belly, because unlike Mario, he's just a little bit fat. But it's kind of odd now that I think about it, because I'm kind of going for a beer belly lumberjack look, so he's gonna have some big beefy arms with some big beefy legs, but he's also still gonna have a belly. I mean, I don't really know. I still think it looks cool in the end. With Luigi's belly smoothed and attached, I can give him his chest and do the same thing, making sure it looks similar and like it's supposed to. Now, with the basic shapes of Luigi's body sculpted, I can start by adding his overalls, which start as a long strip of clay that can be blended in downwards to make the overalls, and make it look like instead of only one layer of clay, it's actually two. And I gotta tell you, the internet is a house of lies. With the overalls in place, I can add some straps, but those will eventually get squished because I added them way too early. Then I can build up Luigi's legs again, because I thought they were looking a little bit too thin, but now I think they're being appropriately sized. And then I can do the same thing with the arms to balance it out. And then I can finally start working on Luigi's big boots, which obviously are shoes sized and shaped pieces of clay that then get shaped in place. Then I can start carving out the slightly janky muscles and continue working on that, trying to get it as smooth as possible. And I'll admit I had a little bit of trouble with the muscles of the arms, but that makes sense because I'm a YouTuber. Like, I don't even know when I stepped outside and touched grass. Then I can add some elbows to make the body look a little bit more natural, and then I can add a bunch of the leg muscles, which I'm pretty sure are correct. Like I just said, I'm trying to reinforce the fact that since I'm not a full-time YouTuber, but since I'm a YouTuber, that means I barely go outside, so I don't even know what people look like. Then I can add some knees like I did the elbows, and blend them in before adding some extra detail back to the shoes to give them a bit more detail, and some extra treads on the bottom in the next step, which will be janky but barely noticeable, which now that I think about it was a waste of time because no one's ever gonna see them apart from you and me. Then I can blend in some worms of clay at the bottom to make the jeans look like they're falling on top of the shoes instead of being tucked in. Then I can start by giving Luigi's shirt sleeves some extra detail. And I thought that tucked in shirt sleeves would be extra manliness, I guess, which I guess is appropriate because it shows off his ridiculous shoulder and bicep muscles, which of course I had to add. Then I can add a crap ton of worms of clay to act as the stretch and pulled fabric, and then I can start adding seams all over the model to make it look more interesting. And then I can hold the model's non-existent hand so I can make those seams. Now, since I absolutely hate making hands, I have to make Luigi's head. But since I always struggle not messing it up, I think I made a pretty ingenious solution. So when I did the aluminum foil wire thing, I made an extra wire sticking out from the bottom instead of sticking in a wire later, so I can hold on to it while I make all the details like the eyes, the eyebrows, the eye wrinkles, the nose, and the little bitty stubborn mouth, which will be 98% covered by his big beefy stash. with Luigi's mustache in place, I can texture it to make it look like a mustache. Then I can do the same thing with his eyebrows to make them look like extra big furry caterpillars. Now, I think Luigi is looking pretty cool bald, but I do think he needs some hair and some ears. So I'm going to add those now after I finish doing the wrinkles for his forehead. But just kidding, he actually gets a scalping and a hat on his head. Well, now I can cut the detail into the hair, which kind of looks like the mustache because it was the same tool. And to make the hat complete, I can add a bit of a seam and then the little brim thing in the front to make it look like the hat that the Mario Brothers wear. Now for some final details on Luigi's head, I can give him some sharp stubble around his face and then give him a small pedestal for a neck, which I can then blend in and stab the wire from his head into place so that it will stay still and look relatively good, which I guess is what I'm really striving for. Then I can give him a little Adam's apple, but the thing is, his neck is a little bit big, so I'm not gonna have to cut it off camera to make it a little bit more size accurate. Then I can start by making some hands, which start out as white blobs of clay, and finger-sized holes can be cut into them. And with this particular hand, I was originally gonna have Luigi squeezing a demon, because my logic was that in Luigi's games, he's a ghost hunter, but my twisted logic thought that since Luigi is like strong, and for some reason that equated in my head to him overcoming his fears, that he is now gone beyond simply just hunting ghosts and is now hunting demons too, which I still thought that was a really good idea, but I just thought it looked weird in his hand in the final sculpture, so I'll end up changing this a little bit later, but just know that that was one of the ideas I had. Then I can start by cutting the separate hand, which will be holding a different weapon instead. And that aforementioned weapon is this pipe that I made off camera. Then also in my own custom Luigi's lore, that he's going to be holding a flashlight in one hand and this pipe in the other hand. So I think it's still going to be cool. And now with the little flashlight I just mentioned, I put a little UV light inside, which makes this clay glow slightly to make it look like a creepy little glow-in-the-dark ghost hunting flashlight. Then I can add a thumb and to both hands, then I can show them off, give a thumbs up to say they're good, and then I can blend them in place on Luigi's arms. And I know that the flashlight position is a little weird, but I couldn't really work around it because the clay would kind of sink just enough. But I can blend in some little worms of clay to make the glove edges, I guess. And then I can start painting Luigi in a nice royal blue. Now, with painting most of the model royal blue, it's not a problem, but I gotta be a tiny bit more careful painting the overall straps and making sure to paint it all consistently, which is, well, multiple coats. And then I can paint Luigi's sleeves in a nice green, along with that little piece of shirt in the front in between the window of the overalls. Then I can paint his hat that same green to match the shirt. With the hat painted, I can then go on to Luigi's boots in a nice plumber brown, and then I can paint his skin color in a nice pasty pale white skin tone. And then I can paint that same pasty pale tone paint all over his face and neck, because he does go outside, so his face does have a little bit of life in terms of his skin color. And then with an even coat on everything, making sure to get in all the corners and gaps in the face and the muscles, I can paint the pipe red. I know that this is not accurate and the pipe should be green, but I'm going for aesthetics, which is something different, And then I can paint the gloves of both hands white to clean them up a little bit before then painting the flashlight a nice bright yellow, which I guess you could say is also aesthetics because it's different from Luigi's main green and blue. And then I can work on painting Luigi's hair and facial hair this grayish brown color with a brush, being very careful not to get the rest of his face because I didn't mix enough paint. Then I can use a ball stylus to get his eyes that are only slightly wonky. And to make Luigi's clothes look like they're being well used, I can give them a thick dry brushing of light blue and light green on the overalls, the shirt sleeves, and his hat. If anyone was wondering, don't worry, I didn't forget Luigi's little L patch. I'm just going to add that a bit more towards the end. Then I can dirty up Luigi's shoes with a lighter and darker brown to make them look well used like the rest of Luigi's outfit. Then I can paint the buttons gold and then show it off to the camera because I was being a little bit lazy, so I used the heat gun so the paint would dry, but it ended up bubbling, which I think it makes it a really good effect instead of like clean new buttons. And to give Luigi's hair a little bit more detail, I can dry brush it in Luigi's skin tone to make the shadows and highlights a bit more obvious, as well as doing the same thing on the hair to make it look extra three-dimensional. Then I can stubble in Luigi's, stubble with another rough brush, and I can dirty up the pipe with different but similar shades of a dirty brownish red. Then I can do the same thing on the flashlight to make it look well used like the pipe. And off camera, I was trying to make some arm hair because I wanted it to look manly, but I gave a thumbs down because I thought it looked pretty darn terrible. So right now I'm trying to color match his skin color, but even after 20 minutes, I could not really get the same color, so there is a slight variation, but if you look past that, it's still a great sculpture. Then I can touch it up a little bit more and try to add some literally non-existent highlights. I wanted it to make it look like Luigi's buff muscles were like reflecting sunlight. Then I can use some isopropyl alcohol to clean the paint from the flashlight so that when it shines it's more obvious. Now I can finally start making a base, which is this piece of foam with a foam circle, which I will be eventually cutting. Now with a perfect circle cut, I can add some popsicle sticks, but I'm going to have to cut them because the tips are rounded and I need them to be flat, which took entirely too long and made an entirely big mess. Then I can use some quote-unquote fancy glue to glue it in place, but maybe I was using it wrong, but I don't know. But it made the planks look slightly uneven because some were raised and some were tilted and some were up or down. But I think that actually makes it look even better because it's more uneven. And this is like a haunted house, I think, which makes it look even better. Then I can cut the excess popsicle sticks off to make it look like a more accurate floor. And then I can carve out some notches and bits into the wood to look extra three-dimensional. Then I can stab it and slice it to do the same thing. Now I can finish the base by painting it muddy brown, and then I can give it several black washes, which will take down the remaining vibrancy of the floor, even though it really didn't have any to begin with. Then I can let those several washes dry to darken the wood, and then I can use another dry brush to bring back some of the highlights and some of the wood color a little bit, but it also adds extra variation, which obviously to make an old busted up floor looks really good. Then I can paint the sides black because the sides aren't important, it's more the top of the base that I'm most focused on. And then I can start by making Luigi a pedestal, and said pedestal is going to be a ghost. Once I've made this ghost look extra sad, I can give him some little wimpy arms that I can then blend into the side of his body to make sure that everyone knows that Luigi has defeated this ghost. And to make it clear that Luigi and this ghost are not friends, I'm going to stomp his foot into the ghost's face to make the foot more secure, and so that it reinsures and forces the idea that these two buds are not friends. Then with a pre-drilled hole I made, I can put the two best buds in place. With two celebratory thumbs ups, I can paint Luigi's little L patch, well, with an L and in a green marker. And now it is finally on to the reveal. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more videos that no one else asked for. Anyways, see you next time. Bye.